Okay, so hopefully you remember the conjugation of hablar, the AR verb, habló, hablas, habla, hablamos, hablan. So I speak, you speak informal, he speaks, she speaks, you formal speak, we speak, and they speak, or you plural speak. So that's the AR verb conjugation, and today we're going to talk about the ER and IR verb conjugation. So you want to go ahead and be in your book on page 150 while we look together at the ER and IR verb conjugation. Okay, it is very similar, so hopefully that will help you. They're also going to give you the irregular there, which means to see. Okay, so if we look at comer, which means to eat from this chapter, and escribir, which means to write, notice that comer is an ER verb and escribir is an IR verb. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the yo form. It is como, which you notice that's just like hablo, right? Como. So the yo form means I eat. It ends in an O, just like the AR form. Okay. Now the AR form is hablas. So comes here is the ER form. Comes. You eat informal. So ES instead of AS, but fairly similar. Okay. Él, ella, usted. It says come. Okay. He eats. She eats. You formal eat. So in the hablar form, it ends in an A. Here it's an ER verb. It ends in an E. So very similar. Okay, then we have the nosotros form. So we have hablamos in the AR form. The ER, you just use an E instead. Comemos. We eat. Okay. There's the vosotros form. I don't make you memorize it, but there it is. And then we have the ellos, ellas, ustedes form, which is comen. If you notice from the AR form, it's an AN. Here it's an EN. So they're very similar. We're just using an E instead of an A. Okay? And the yo forms are exactly the same. Okay? Let's look at the escribir, which means to write. It's an IR verb. Again, the yo form ends in an O. Escribo. Okay? I write. The two, instead of an I, which is what you might expect, you should notice that it's exactly the same as the ending in the ER verbs. Okay? Escribes. Comes. Okay? Yes. And the LA usted form is the same as the ER form as well. Come, escribe. Okay? He writes, she writes, you formal write. Now, here the nosotros form is always different. If you notice in the ER form, it's comemos, E. Here, we do keep the I. This is the only one that keeps the I in the IR verb form. Escribimos. Okay, so we have I-M-O-S. And then there's the vosotros form. And then the ellos, ellas, ustedes form is again the same as it in the ER verb. We keep the EN, escriben. Okay, they write, you plural write. Okay, so hopefully you just have to practice these just like we did with hablar, but they are very similar. You just have to remember their irregular, I guess it's not really regular, it's the regular form, but this is the only one that has an actual I. The rest of the ER, IR verbs are exactly the same, except for the nosotros form. Let's look at the irregular ver, which means to see. If you notice, it keeps the E in the yo form. Technically, it should get rid of that, but it keeps it veo, I see. Ves, you see, informal. Okay, and again, we're going to keep this E there. Ves. Ve, V-E. We only have one E in that one. Vemos, we see. There's the vosotros form, and ven. Okay, so veo, ves, ve, vemos, ven. Okay, it might kind of remind you a little bit of ear there, but it is a little bit irregular in the use of the E's. Okay, we have some extra ones that seem a little bit irregular. Okay, let's go ahead and look at this exercise. I'm going to have you turn this in today. So we're going to go ahead and look at it together. We're going to be completing complete las oraciones sobre las vacaciones de Antonia y su familia. So complete the sentences about Antonio and his family's vacation. Use la forma correcta del verbo entre paréntesis. Okay, so use the correct form of the verb in the parentheses. So Ana y yo, so hopefully you'll know that should be we. And then correr means to run. So Ana and I run on the beach. Okay, hopefully you said corremos, the nosotros form. Later, we take a break and that means to read comic books in English. Okay, so what form of leer would go with yo? Hopefully you said leo. I read, L-E-O. Los lunes Y los miércoles, so on Mondays and Wednesdays, my parents asistir, that means to attend an exercise class. Okay, if it's my parents, that's going to be plural. So you should say asisten. Okay. A Miguel le gustan las hamburguesas y las papas fritas. So Miguel likes hamburgers and French fries. He always eats a lot. So our subject, of course, is he or Miguel. So what form of comer would you use for he? Hopefully you said come. Mis padres no ven muchas películas. Les gustan las novelas. So my parents don't see a lot of movies. They like to read novels, or they like novels. So what form of to see would we use with parents? Hopefully you know that it's the plural, the ven, the ven. And you, Diana, why don't you write me a postcard? Okay, so we have escribir. And you're talking to Diana. We're saying, why don't you, Diana? So escribes. Make sure that you keep the es on it, even though it's an IR verb. Every day we receive letters, but not from you. Alright, recibir here means to receive. Okay, and your subject is nosotros. So hopefully put recibimos. Alright, let me know if you have any questions. That's the ER and the IR verb.